everyone. My name is Eric Riney. I am chair of the management department in the Walker School of Business. I teach marketing classes and I oversee our MS in marketing program. And we are excited about today's programming. So we're going to get started with an introduction of our guest. Rand Harbert was the chief agency and sales and marketing officer at State Farm from 2012 to 2022. State Farm is the largest auto and homeowners insurer in the U.S. with 94 million policies and accounts in force net worth of $145 billion and currently ranks 36 on the Fortune 500 list. More than 19,000 agents and 68,000 employees serve customers throughout the U.S. Sounds like a good company to work for. Rand joined State Farm in 1992 as an agent. After serving in various leadership positions, he was appointed to Chief Agency and Sales and Marketing Officer from 2012 to 2022. Prior to joining State Farm, he served in various roles at H.J. Heinz and Marion Merrill Dow. Named by Business Insider to its 50 most innovative CMOs, Chief Marketing Officers, for those of you that are not in marketing, list in both 2016 and 2017, Rand led a complete transformation of State Farm logo and overhaul brand positioning. Under his leadership, State Farm was named a 2020 Marketer of the Year by Ad Age in recognition of the innovation and innovative ways the company reached consumers throughout the year. A graduate of University of Central Missouri, Rand earned an MBA from Webster University and graduated from the General Management program at the Harbert Business School. Rand serves on the board of directors for State Farm Life Company in Hagerty. He is also a former board member of State Farm General Company, where he served as chairman and CEO. He's also been a board member, or is currently a board member for the American College, Teach for America, the California Business Roundtable, where he served as chairman, the California Chamber of Commerce, the Reagan Legacy Foundation, Eureka College, and the University of Central Missouri Foundation Board. Rand has been married to his wife, Kelly, for 38 years, fantastic, and has 3 adult children, 1 granddaughter, and 2 grandsons. Let's welcome Rand to the stage.
Thank you.
So I think a good way to start off is to just, I read your bio, but it doesn't tell everything. So can you tell us a little bit about your career, your family, life?
Yeah. So I grew up, any Kansas City people here? Probably not. Of course not. I grew up on the other side of the state, just outside of Kansas City in a small town. Went to Central Missouri, as you said, which I think we have in common.
Yes.
Went to Central Missouri. I went there on a golf scholarship. I played golf and kind of did all the undergraduate things. Went to work for a pharmaceutical company straight out of college, Marion Merrill Dow. You mentioned it, which is calling on doctors in pharmacies and that kind of thing. And I spent my first year in Columbia, Missouri. Then I got moved to St. Louis. I applied to go to business school at WashU, but because of my travels, I was gone a lot of nights. I had a big territory, so I came over here and shadowed a class and decided it was actually really what I wanted in the very practicum orientation. I remember it was a marketing class, and one of the senior vice presidents of Anheuser-Busch was actually teaching the class, and I'm like, that's what I wanted to learn. I came here on the sales side of the world, really wanting to move to marketing, really wanted to be a brand manager. Ultimately, I think if you're sitting in this room today, hopefully you have dreams about something, and when I was sitting in this room, I wanted to make advertising. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. And I found out that you just don't go make advertising. You get into marketing. So ultimately, I became a brand manager and started running a big part of their business after I finished the program here. I moved to Cincinnati, was in Cincinnati, and was on an executive exchange program at Procter & Gamble. H.J. Heinz moves to Cincinnati, moves all their pet food and seafood business. I go there for 3 years, and that was like a PhD in brand management there. Learned a ton. And but all this time, probably since I was here, I was thinking, you know what, I'm really interested in being an entrepreneur. So I had the chance to own a State Farm agency and move back to the hometown. So I went to Overland Park to kind of say, no more corporate life. I'm going to be an independent contractor, an entrepreneur, make a lot of money doing that, which those guys have an opportunity to do. And I thought, that's my calling. And did that for 6 years, but the whole time they kept asking me to get back to management because I had a totally different background than most State Farm agents. So I finally said yes in 1998, and literally from 98 until 22, I was in, I think, 12 different roles. So I moved a lot. We lived in 13 cities. Coming from a kid whose parents, until my mom passed away in 16, still lived in the same house that they built in 1951. Same with my wife. We moved all over, the creation here. So we lived from, New York to California and every city in between, it seemed like. So that's kind of, career up to now. And you told about my family. I'm married to my college sweetheart, and we have 3 adult kids, 29, 31, 33.
Beautiful, beautiful. So really quickly, before I move to the next question, in terms of undergrad, your graduate education, you went to Harvard as well.
Yep.
What would you say were some of those aha moments that you had that really helped shape you? Or what are some suggestions you have for these students in terms of, hey, here's what you need to pull out of your college experience?
So some of your professors may not appreciate this guidance that I'm about to give you, but I found this to be kind of the reality, and that is, be a sponge here. I wasn't a good high school student. I'm certain most of you were. I was not. So when I went to college, I kind of said, you know what, I'm going to shift out of playing sports and doing all the sports and just focusing on that, and I'm going to become a better student. And it kind of opened my eyes. But what I started realizing was, as important as it was to learn accounting 101, it was equally as important to talk to the people who are older than me and find out, what did you do to make sure you had a job when you graduated? And then it became more important to say, hey, do you think your boss would talk to me, right? And it wasn't, that period was not a great job market, but I just made it my job to connect myself. And, I would challenge all of you. I mean, if you can leave here, you're getting a good education, but if you can leave here and look back and say, I'm twice as connected as I was to the world versus when I got here as from high school, you're going to win the game of life. Because, as you know, that's what it kind of becomes. And I think of all the good things in life that have happened for me, most of it was because of someone I knew or someone who I took a liking to that liked me and then would call and say, hey, have you ever thought about this or that? Or, that's the way I ended up at Harvard. I was working. I had to go on a sabbatical to go there, but, it was a friend who goes from a different company that said, I went to this program, you should apply, you're perfect for it. And, you can imagine you're going to your company saying, this is how much it costs, and I'm not going to work for the next year. But that tended to, I think that was one of the springboards for me, because not because I went to Harvard, what I learned while I was there, and then the connection field. So that would be my advice to all of you.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And I don't think any of us faculty would be upset about that. Networking, networking,
Yes.
networking. You
Yep.
got to have those connections. That's great advice. So you mentioned advertising and marketing. You had this desire to go in. Why? Why? What was it about that field particularly?
It seemed like when I was getting my MBA, everyone wanted to be, in investment banking or consulting. You remember that era. I mean, and none of that interested me. I wanted to run a big business, honestly. I wanted to be the 28-year-old who really probably had no business running a big business. But I was put on a team and proved myself here. And then, so and when I say running a big business, so some of you will laugh when I say this, but running the 9 Lives cat food business, right? I remember telling my mom, she was like, "Oh, great, that sounds like an important job." And I'm like, "Well, it's it's $1.2 billion of revenue a year, right?" And I'm 26 or 27 years old, so I wanted that. And the reason I was interested in that is because it brought in all the disciplines, right? So if you're a business student, everything from accounting and finance to budgeting, and of course the things that you would kind of put with that, all the marketing, managing a sales force, but it was all those things together that made me say, that's kind of what I really want to do. And I was just blessed. It's a hard transition, as you know. Everyone studies marketing and then they go get a sales job because no, not many companies hire straight into marketing, right? I see heads shaking. How many of you like to be truly a marketing role someday? Yeah, yeah. And if you look at it, you go, what's the path to that? And it's just not. It's not easy. And a lot of people go, I don't want to go sell, right? But that's where all paths lead. Well, I think there's a reason for that. And once you go that more traditional route, if you've had that selling experience and you're sitting with a bunch of marketers who haven't had it, you're way ahead of the game, right? And at first I thought, gosh, why did I have to do that? And now I look back and go, thank goodness I had the opportunity to do that, and was good at it and liked it so much that ultimately I said, you know what, I'm gonna put my own money, buy a State Farm agency, and kind of do it all again. All right, and then turned around and went right back in. It's kind of like my love and my girlfriend here. I had 2 different things between sales and marketing. But that's certainly the company I worked for. It was a hard job to get that first break into marketing. And then as soon as you got in, then you're a marketer, and people are like, how do I get in? It's like, it's complicated, it's hard. But when I was challenged to make connections and think, that's exactly. If I had one thing running through my head when I was sitting, really close to here in business school classes, it was, how am I going to meet the right people to move me from pharmaceutical sales into packaged goods marketing, right? So, when I had a professor from Anheuser-Busch, I wore her out, When I had anyone that I would meet in St. Louis, because that was my time here, I would wear out. I'm like, do you know your VP of marketing? Would they visit with me? I got a class project, I need to talk to someone. I have a class project. I want to make connections. And as I finished here, literally, I finished here on October 12th, and I interviewed on October 10th, and I moved to Cincinnati on October 15th, so I didn't even get to go through the graduation. Literally finished and became an assistant brand manager, and then from there, kind of went on. So, but I can't emphasize enough. All that starts now. If it is to be, it's up to you, right? If you own that proposition, what am I going to do in my life? What's out there for me? Own it and don't. It's not a part-time thing. It's not a thing you start thinking about in February of your senior year. Start thinking about it now, if you haven't. And I know most of you have, but it's really important.
Yeah, and I love what you said about getting your foot in the door, taking a job that you might not desire, but it helps to get you in the door. It also will help cultivate some knowledge about the particular company, the industry, and help drive your success.
100%. Your first job is not your last job. And if it is, you pick the wrong field and need to do something else probably in your life. But, everyone has to start somewhere, right? So I remember interviewing people when I was really senior and out down the road, and they would go like, well, I'm not interested in that. And I'm like, why? And they wouldn't say these words, but it's like, I'm above that job. And I'm like, you're above working here. That's what you just told me, And on the other hand, you'd meet someone who goes, I'll do anything to get my foot in the door. And then as soon as that person flourished, guess what happened? They got moved up. So I think a lot of that's mindset. But, it's kind of like people go, well, I don't want to move. Or, I want to work from home or whatever. I'm like, just don't lock yourself into those things, right? I mean, how about this? I want to be all I can be. And on that way, if there are things that people say to me that I go, nope, I'm not going to do that, think about this. You're saying it at the moment where you get to make the decision. Versus on the front end of everything going, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, I'm going to live here. Well, you just lock yourself out because, employers will go, well, you're just not the person here. Do all the things to get the opportunity. Then say, you know what, I'm going to pass on that because it's not right for me right now. But so many people go in with the rules, the rule book, and then they go, I don't know why I'm not getting invited back anywhere. It's like, well, because you're not dictating the rules as much as you may think you are,
Yes.
I know that kind of sounds harsh, but I think that's the reality.
Yeah. So you've had different roles. I'm going to combine a couple of things here.
Yeah.
I'd like for you to just talk about the various roles you've had and the mindset you had in those roles, and then how you transitioned to the new roles and the higher responsibility, how did that happen in terms of your career?
So I kind of told you the front end of my career. I was here. My company was headquartered in Cincinnati, so I left here, went to Cincinnati, and was a marketing assistant and became a full brand manager. Maybe 5.5 years. So I was still with Dow, still with my original company. Mary Merrill Dow is a division of Dow Chemicals, big pharma. And had really started getting, I think I was getting good at my job, but I was probably also getting a little arrogant. And I just wanted to work on bigger brands, right? I'm like, nothing against Novahistine cough medicine, but I really wanted to work on bigger brands. So I started searching out. When I went to Heinz, it kind of, like I said, it was kind of learning through a fire hose. They didn't train at all. They paid. They overpaid and basically told you on the front end, we're hiring you because you have the skills and you've been trained. If you can't play high speed rock and roll here, you're out. It was just Dow was very paternal. Heinz was not. Great companies, both of them, just different styles. So by the time I decided I wanted to do my own thing, I went to work for State Farm. I probably had a teeny bit of arrogance in that, I have ran billion-dollar businesses, and I'm going to come back and open, my little 500 square foot office, and I loved it and make a go at it, but I wasn't taking a lot of advice from the next agent down the street, if you know what I mean, right? I was like, I know how to do this, right? I know how to sell. I know how, and that was probably not the wisest thing, right? Because there's a lot to learn, and that's a very different business. And of all the businesses I was in, I by far learned the most about business at State Farm, from every aspect, from the corner store all the way to running a big company. I just learned a lot. But I had to take some humbling, to answer your question, I had to take some humbling moves because I said no to them 4 times, kind of in not an arrogant way, but I was just like, no, I'm not going to become a manager, a local manager. If I wanted to be doing this kind of thing, I would go back and do what I used to do and run a big business. I'm not going to be the local Kansas City, first line manager. But, ultimately I did it because I think deep in my mind, I wondered, was that job going to hold me for 30 years, right? And I was more interested in solving big problems. I just didn't want to have to start here to do it, but I did. But I think because of all that experience, right, and I probably turned a switch then to say, look, from here on out, I want to learn everything I can. And the answer is going to be head down. I'm loving what I'm doing. And, if opportunity comes, that's great. And if it doesn't, I'll then decide what to do. I'll go back and be an agent again. And so without going deep in that, I was a first line manager for a year. And then I got asked to go work for the regional president who ran that area on a test program where they wanted to bring in someone young that they thought had potential and really expose them to the highest level. And, and that meant moving, right? I wasn't excited about moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma, but I did it. And it ended up being a game changer for me because I went down there and I said, I can do that. I could do what he does. I don't have the tenure, I don't have all the jobs. So I did that for a year, and that was just eye-opening and worked hard and built a reputation. Then I went to the city of Chicago to kind of, run part of the city, like as in downtown, in that area of a bunch of State Farm agents. Went to Harvard, did that for 2 years, went to Harvard for 8 months, came back. And when I came back, I got moved into a corporate job. And the corporate job was basically an executive and training job. They told me to plan on being there for 3 years. In 4 months, they asked me, would I start the State Farm Mutual Fund company, which now was a whole different deal because now any arrogance that you used to have now goes to, I don't know if I know how to spell mutual funds, But they had the confidence that I could, build this and operate it. So we did that, and I did that for 3 years, and had a lot of success at that. And they said, we want you to take another lateral. So if you're counting, that's 3. And I'm like, wow, it's just, I don't know if this is the way it goes. And so then I went and I ran all of the Metroplex in Dallas and really a fourth of Texas. Then I left there and I was the number 2 person for the 10 states in the Northeast. And then I became president of State Farm California. And then I came back and that's the 2012 on to where I came back into the big job and had all of sales and all of marketing for the organization.
Yeah. So it sounds like, you had some testing ground, but also
a lot of testing ground.
Also, just a way to set you up for the next level as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things. Again, I was a kid that I lived in a small town. I never moved. I grew up poor. No, not poor. I grew up by the standard of the world measurement. My parents didn't make a lot of money. You didn't have to have a lot of money where I grew up, to have a nice life, but. By most standards, it would be like lower income. And so I started telling myself, like, hey, if you think you can really do that, do you think you can go to Cincinnati and compete with people who, had MBAs, from Northwestern in marketing? And then at State Farm, do you really think you can mix it up with people who have really diverse backgrounds, insurance backgrounds? So it was kind of a constant, how hard can I stretch myself, stay true to who I am, but stretch myself. And, I found that to be, Steve Jobs wrote a book right after, way before any of you were born. Steve Jobs wrote a book when him and Steve Wozniak started Apple. Right at the time they took it public and Wozniak left, Jobs wrote a book called The Journey is the Reward. In other words, becoming an overnight billionaire wasn't the reward. The reward was starting in that garage and figuring this stuff out, right? And if I had to describe my journey, at my work journey, I would say the journey was the reward. It seemed like forever I wasn't making the money I thought I earned or needed to make, and all that takes care of itself. I didn't have a high enough job. I always had more capacity. I had more capacity till one day I woke up and said, easy, I've got it coming from all areas. So, I mean, I think if you do what you love and then attack it, you got a really, really good chance. And by the way, that wasn't only true in my era, that's true today.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your mindset, because you mentioned, I think we all go through a little bit of arrogance as we,
as you learn,
as you become successful, like, oh, yeah, I'm the king here.
Yeah.
But just in terms of having that mentality, like you said, you came from a small town, but you saw what this CEO was doing, what this manager was doing. I can do that. I want to do these things. So where did that mindset come from, and how can we, help these individuals gain that type of mindset?
So, I mean, all of you came from, different situations. One set of parents pushed me to be all I can be. The next set said, look, this is where we're from. This is kind of what we do. You just do what dad did and you'll be okay. The next one is, I don't care what you do. You have all of those different things. I'm well aware of it. And I probably came from the middle of all that, right? Parents who didn't have high expectations, wanted us to do well. Me and my two brothers were all first generation college students. Parents weren't educated, formally educated. And so, I think for me, it was deciding that I belong, right? You're gonna interview against kids, it's like, well, it's you and the kid from Notre Dame, right? And you're like, well, I didn't go to Notre Dame. Well, let that go, right? Because really, it's you against that person. And at the end of the day, people like me didn't care, where you went to. Look where I went to undergraduate. Certainly wasn't Notre Dame, right? But buy into you. Grab that dream, whatever it is that you want to do, and nothing's, just tell yourself, I don't know how I'm ever going to get to be, the GM of the Blues, but I'm going to, and it starts right now. And if that's what you want to do, start putting yourself in a position to do that. And don't let the circumstance you grew up in, whether good or bad, determine the direction that you're going to head in.
Beautifully said. I love that. Okay, so when you read your bio, it sounds like it was, a quick rise, but we see that, no, you had a lot of different things that you went through and all of that. What were some of the lessons that you learned going through?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I mean, one is I'm not patient, right? I'm not a patient person. And I wasn't patient when I was I wasn't patient when I was 10 years old, right? To be truthful. And so, I had to teach myself that, being overly aggressive about everything really wasn't serving anyone well, especially me, right? So I kind of had to check that speed at the door a lot. And, but once I did, people, you're going to find this, whatever you do in life, whoever you're working for, they love for you to go, you know what? I'm just happy doing this job and I'm doing it 110%. They love to hear that. But it's that person that they've already said, you know what? They don't know it, but they're going to do this or that. There's other things that are already set for this person because of the way they approach it. Then there's the person that can't do anything except talk about this 2 jobs up, and what happens to them? They find themselves, either out or why am I always getting overlooked? It's like, well, because you never did your job. You're always doing your boss's job.
Right.
So I learned early on to kind of stay in the game and, and kind of check my enthusiasm, and just like keep my head down. I mean, the best single advice you're ever going to get in your life is whatever you're doing, be great at it. That's it. You want everything you can imagine in your life, anything you want. Just be great at what you're going to do, and you've got a heck of a shot at making that happen. But if you're not, right, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how great your education is. None of that matters. Who your parents are, none of it matters. But if you're great at what you do, you got a really good chance of winning. And I mean, that sounds horribly simple, and it is simple advice. It's just between now and when you're my age, going in every day with that attitude that I'm going to be great at this today, even if I don't like it. Even if it's not my favorite thing or the thing I want to do here, I'm going to be great at it today.
Yeah, yeah. So really quickly, because, especially the marketing students, but I think all students, period, accounting, whatever your passion is. Can you talk a little bit about respecting, understanding the other
disciplines,
and how that came into play as you went through your career?
Honestly, I as I think about my career and the different places I had opportunities to learn at, that probably came from here. What was the biggest learning here? I didn't have a traditional business background, so the marketing classes here were great for me. But what I think I really learned here was, I remember having a cost accounting class, right? I had to have it in my MBA. You had to have so much accounting to get in the program, but then you had to have, I think, 1 or 2 units. And I remember taking cost accounting. And my wife was a partner at KPMG, right? So any accounting in my house, she handled, not me. Or principal, whatever. I think she's a principal. But long story short, I remember going in that class, and the teacher said, look, if you'll put in effort, you're going to learn accounting. If you worry about what your grade's going to be, come up and talk to me. But if you just put in the effort, you're going to learn cost accounting. And I remember that hit me. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to put in the effort. And then the first class started with this. This semester, we're going to talk about 2 things. Those of you accounting students will get this. Everyone else will go, what's he talking about? Cost accounting. We're going to talk about building locomotives, train locomotives, and manufacturing Ziploc bags. And I remember thinking, I have died and I'm welcome to hell, right? I am going to be here, But what the person was basically saying to us is, if you're manufacturing something that you build 7 a year, there's a way to account for that. And if you're manufacturing something that you do 250 a second, there's a way to account for that. And you know what? I learned it, right? I remember I had a stat class here, right? Taught just right around the corner here. Same deal. I was like, I'm going to hate this. Maybe one of the best things I ever did. I ended up in brand management where, we were deep in statistics all the time. And, I'm glad I understood what a standard deviation was. I didn't want to teach a class on it, but I'm glad I understood it, right? Breadth is a great thing, gang. It's a great thing. So the more you know about more things, the more powerful of a person you're going to be, particularly in the business world. That may not be true in medicine, although I bet it is. But in business, the more you know about how that function works, what the role of that function is, and how that function can make your life easier, better, the more successful you're going to be. And that's something I think I got here. Certainly when I went to Harvard, it was fire hose on all. They expected you to know all that. Right. But I think it was here that I kind of learned that, and I can tell you, all those disciplines mattered a lot, in my career. Yeah. Not being an expert, but but being able to ask an intelligent question. It matters.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so we all want to know, what is it like to be at the top of the food chain at State Farm, one of the largest companies in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was is a question that I guess I say like I never thought about, but I'd be a liar. I did, I kind of wanted that kind of opportunity, and then I got there and thought, wow, why was this your goal? Because it's a lot, It's so I had the whole sales and marketing function. Most companies have that split. State Farm always kept those together for a lot of reasons. And it just so happened that I had big background on both sides, right? Which is really unusual, particularly in an insurance company. So I felt, I guess the first thing I said was, it's an overwhelming job, right? And we can talk about that if you want to. But I mean, it's an overwhelming role, but I always felt like, I was the right person for the job, and I never felt overwhelmed by not understanding what was going on over here or over there because they're totally different disciplines. Right. I did like the fact your last question probably demonstrates it more than anything. When you rise to the top of an organization, you're no longer sitting around other people that you go, well, I'm better at that than she is, and she's better at that than me, because for whatever reason, you've risen to that position. So now you're sitting in a room of, well, there's the HR person that beat out 180 people to be here, and there's the finance person. You go around the room, everyone's kind of in that place. So it really kind of goes back to your last question in that, I work for the CEO, and I worked for him for a long time in my career, 2 different times. And he used to say, and if he's here right now, he would say it. He used to say, look, I want my senior most people, I don't expect you to know as much as the finance person, but I expect you to be able to finish his sentence. AKA, I expect you to know enough about it that when he starts talking about it, you go, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Well, that's a lot, but it becomes for me, it became a totally different challenge. It's like, what's it take to get there, right? A lot. What's it take to stay there? A lot, and they're totally different things, if that makes sense, right? But that didn't intimidate me. It challenged me. There's a lot of things. A lot of times, you have to prepare. By the time I got there, I'm like, I've lived in 13 cities. You can't, I know what it's like in California. I know it's like New York and, Georgia and Florida and Missouri. You can't play that game with me. I know that stuff. What I didn't know about is how a finance or your controller made the decisions that he made and how much that affected you. So, that became kind of the next passion. The word I was going to say is the next game. To say, people who say, well, I'm not playing the game. Well, you're not going to play then, right? Whatever you do, you're going to play the game, right? How well you play the game will be up to you, but you're playing the game or you wouldn't have got hired, right? And to me, I almost gamified that kind of thing, right? I mean, I can do this, I can learn this, and because you are a CPA and I'm not, that's not going to intimidate me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So this is really the epitome of a lifelong learning situation.
100%.
Where you constantly are learning.
Yeah. I remember once I told my boss, who came up from the finance side, the CEO, said, hey, look, I need a lot more on the investment management side, because if you're an insurance company, you're in the money game. I mean, it's an investment company, right? And 2 days later, I get a notice like that, I was invited to sit on, from that point forward, on all the investment council meetings. Well, trust me, I didn't like it anymore. I realized why I never got in that space, but I learned a hell of a lot, by just sitting there and absorbing that stuff. And, no, I don't want to run that. I have a son-in-law that runs that stuff today. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it. But I learned enough to be not just dangerous, but informed. And if you can be informed about the things that are not your they're not your island. If you can just be informed, you're probably winning the game.
Right, right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about where you think things are evolving, specifically in marketing, but generally in business, in, just where we are in terms of the expectations of careers, things like that.
Yeah. So first of all, I say this, you are far better situated for the future that you're going to face than my generation was. And that's a gigantic compliment because, if you think about, almost everyone here was born into technology. Now you laugh at the technology that you had when you were a kid versus today, but talk to those of us up here and you're like, there was no technology, right? So, I remember getting my first computer in 1990. Really, it was a word processor.
Word processor,
right?
That's right.
I bought a computer when I was getting my MBA here, and I remember my wife goes, I want to load Lotus 123 on it, right? It's only the old people know what that is. But that would have been like, a really early on spreadsheet. And I'm like, I don't need that. I just need to know that, back then I think it was Word Perfect or whatever they called it.
Perfect.
I need to know that works so I can type papers. Isn't this cool? That's spell check. That was kind of technology. And I looked to where technology was. I left at the end of 22. I actually stayed on to the end of 23, but I quit working. I was kind of an advisor my last year. I quit working at the end of 22. And I look at where that business has gone from 22 to right now, and it boggles my mind, right? So one of the things that we visit on, is like, kind of the phases. I'll talk marketing for a second, kind of the phases of marketing. And this is why I say you're so much more capable than our group. Marketing that I joined, by the way, which probably started in the mid-'60s and went till 1995, was just traditional marketing. The 4 Ps, product placement, promotion, that was it, right? And the companies that figured out how to do that best, usually with a lot of person power, won, right? But there's, it's just that was the game. And then, you get to 95 and all of a sudden things start to change. And then the internet happens. And when the internet happens, that really became the first, it really wasn't even the internet, it was the ability to do commerce over the internet. And you guys were little kids probably. I'm certain you were. But that was a game changer. And I remember, like, if people go, when do you think about the digital age beginning? Right then, for me. And I think from those very early years till probably 20, 21, 22, it was just lightning fast. So during your young lives, it just changed exponentially, literally by the month, right? So, I remember the first time we were doing stuff like People Like You, would like this.
Yes.
Well, today that's 5 generations ago, all the way to now, and you know this as well as I do, put anything, hey, I'm thinking about this e-bike, put that into your browser and see what happens in the next 2 days, right? You know what's going to happen. And it's because, AI and where AI is going and where AI is going to go exponentially, you put yourself, that's what I'd say to all of you. I don't care what you're studying. Get a handle on that. Now, I'm not just talking chat GPT. I'm talking about really understanding that game without having to be a computer scientist, right? But really understand that game, because I don't care what you're going to do, it's going to be a part of your future, right? And I'd like to talk to you more about it, but that's how much things have changed since I left in 22. But I know I talked to the person that replaced me, and they're just fire hosing it. They're drinking out of a fire hose, and I'm like, do you get all that? It's like, no, but I'm learning. We're learning as we go. So it's just the world's going to go at that pace.
Yeah, and it is parallel to the digital age, right?
100%.
Where at the beginning of the digital age, you didn't know exactly where things were going.
People in this room wouldn't consider the beginning of the digital age digital at all.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's and now, your world's changing. Like what you liked 2 years ago is totally changed. And I think a lot of you are hearing this right now going, well, duh, of course. But that's just not that's a speed that the world's going to work at that you are built to handle, and we had no experience in it. And that I'm a first year learner. That's the reality.
Yeah. So really quickly, what would you say has been your greatest challenge, either in your career, life, whatever? And what did you learn from that? How did you overcome it?
Yeah. So I had worked, the person that I replaced, I had worked for in my career, and he was kind of a go-between between the old school and getting the world ready for what became me, but whoever was going to be me. So, the person before me was in the job for 11 years, I think. He was in the job for 7, and then, I was in for 12. And some of that's age-oriented, but a lot of that, I think, was just like, we're getting ready to change at a lightning speed. And so I would say the biggest challenge of my career was trying to change a company that had been number one for 70 years, right? I don't have to tell you how many companies in this world have held on to a leadership position for 70 years. You can put them on one hand. And yet knowing that if we didn't change, and I mean fast, this is back in 12, you're going to go away, right? So, I say my first job was how to change the engines on a 747 while it's absolutely in full flight, right? And not kill anyone, not crash the plane. So I'll give you an example. It's kind of funny because you look at what Cracker Barrel just went through. But, we had the same logo since 1945. And it, everyone knew it, but if you looked at it, it kind of looked like it was made in 1945. And so in 2011, we brought in a group out of New York and started working on it, like people who do this for a living. And we made the decision that fall that we were going to change the logo. Now, when you change the logo in a big company, first of all, I got 20,000 offices that have that old logo, not only on the outside of their building, but all over it. And then every letterhead, every, policy form, every bill. So,
Right.
This is a once in a lifetime, and that's too many to kind of change. And by the way, and then the people who go, I like the old logo. My dad was, he was here, and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, when you do it wrong, you as young people just got to see what happens, right? It goes bad, and it went bad in a hurry, and, you're on your knees, saying, we'll change it back, and, not only do you lose $100 million of value in your company, but you lost, gosh knows how much, and just the effort to get to that point to turn it around in a week. But then we decided what we were going to do in the fall of 2011, and I teased the guy I was working for. I said, so Mike, let's get this out November 1 so we can get this change out while you're here, under your watch, You led all the work. And he just laughed and goes, no, that didn't happen under my watch. I said, when's that going to happen? He goes, January 1. So they got a letter like at Christmas time saying, this person's retiring. This is the new leader of this whole space. And they went over Christmas, said, I don't even know this kid. He looks too young, blah, blah, blah. And then on January 2nd, when they got back to work, it's, hey, the logo from the last 70 years, it's changed to this. And I hadn't been there. I'd been in the job for 20 minutes. I probably got 700 notes. Remember, these people are independent contractors, so they don't have to be nice, right? Calling me everything you could ever imagine. My 5th grader could have designed something better. And, it was rough, right? It's kind of like having a Jake that's one Jake and then going to a new Jake, right? Which was a whole other story. But there's ways to do that kind of stuff. But it felt like I had 10 of those things in those 12 years. Just monster things. that you had to take on. And I remember in 18 gathering my team, knowing at that time I was going to go out at the end of 22, and no one else knowing, saying, hey, we met at my house at the Lake of the Ozarks, and I said, look, we've talked about these things. We're going to get these six things done between now and in the fall of 22. And they're all big uphill pushes, and we did it. We thought about it, we planned for it, but it just, you have to, if you're going to be a person that gets stuff done, you're also going to be a person that has to be comfortable being temporarily misunderstood at times. And by the way, and have the skin to go, no, it's the right thing, right? And by the way, fortunately, I didn't have to change the logo back, but it could have happened. And I'm not telling you some stories that didn't go so well, but there's those things too. So it's just you really, I think you have to get convicted about what you're going to do, and then be thoughtful about it, but then do it, and not walk up to the edge and always go, it's scary up here, so I'm going to back off. And that was probably, that in totality, those kind of things, those are tough, right? We're going to change structure A and go to structure B. We weren't a big layoff company, but nonetheless, there were times, like, in this new structure, we don't need 1,200, we need 700, I worried, like, what are those people going to do? This is their life, and I cared about it, to the point that my hair's the color it is. It used to be more like your color, but now it's this color. But but that's your job, If you want all that goes with those jobs, you've got to accept that as a part of it. And in the end, I look back, and those are the things I'm most proud of, right? But none of them were easy.
Yeah. So it sounds like, some strong strategic planning, some commitment and drive, but also thick skin.
Thick skin and think it through, right? Business is a game of chess, not checkers, right? So, one of the best compliments you could ever get in business is you're someone who looks around corners. You look around the corner before it blows up. So when it blows up, you go, as I told you, this could happen. Here's what we're going to do now. Checkers players don't do that. They're like, oh, just got beat on that. We'll win next time. Well, you can't do that. And the bigger the business, the more life you're putting in stake, and the whole thing.
Yeah, I have a saying, plan, expect the best, but plan for the worst.
The worst, yeah. So it's the same thing.
Yeah. So you mentioned Jake from State Farm. You want to tell a little bit about that story and the transition and the new Jake and the connection with Webster?
Yeah. It's the second most. I get asked that. The question I get asked most is like, did you pick Patrick Mahomes because you're a Kansas City fan? Which I didn't. Patrick Mahomes kind of came through a conversation with Aaron Rodgers when he was working with us.
Yeah.
But so, just for the record, all agents around the country, it's like, you pick a Kansas City guy. I'm like, well, he turned out to be pretty good. So, Kevin Miles is who you're talking about, who plays that character. Who's, by the way, a super proud alumni of this institution, undergraduate. Do you guys know that? Yeah. Jake went to school here.
Yeah, he was also at United.
Yeah, he's very super proud of it.
Graduated from the conservatory in 2012.
Yeah, he talks about it all the time. Once he found out that I'd been to school here, I'm getting Gorlock stuff in the mail, and he can't. So we did an ad in 2013 with this character, which, by the way, we literally had the ad agency walk down the aisles of the call center, and they were looking for kind of someone who could play the blah, So, they picked the guy. He's a good guy. Now he's a really thin guy, but then he was kind of overweight and looks like me now, And we picked him, and he did this ad. Well, really, if you go back and watch that ad, the only thing he said was khakis. That's the whole line, right? But this ad was like it's the best ad in America, that year. And we could run that thing 3 years later when that wasn't even the campaign and just watch this. So finally, it took me 3 years. It's like at an agency come and said, we need to create a professional character, which I was totally against because I'm like, characters age out, especially if they're not animated characters, they age out. Characters are human beings and they get DUIs and they have flaws and all the things. I'm like, I just wasn't for it, but I knew they were right. So we picked 1,000 people. We went to New York, looked at 1,000 actors, 1,100 in Chicago, and 1,000 in Los Angeles. And they got down to 10 people. And you can imagine, these 10 people look like the United Nations, And I told this story to Newsweek magazine. It's published just like this. And Kevin certainly always tells this story. My wife was standing behind me. I was watching football on a Sunday. She goes, "What are you?" At an iPad. She goes, "What are you looking at?" She saw 10 pictures. And I'm like, "Well, we're gonna make this Jake character a permanent character," which at that time I wasn't convinced was the right thing. And she looked at the screen. She goes, "That's your Jake." She pointed straight at Kevin. I'm like, "That's not my Jake. I haven't even looked at these yet," Well, I watched them all. Then I said, "Why don't you watch them?" She goes, "I told you." She didn't even ask me what I thought. She goes, "I told you." And I knew that was our guy when he's getting all these directions from the director, and Kevin looks straight at this director. After all these other people are flobbing it, not doing well, Kevin goes, "Well, if that's what you want, that's easy because that's just who I am. So you just ask me to be me because the person you just described, that's me. It's a Chicago kid." And he does it one time, and you could hear the directors talking like, "Wow, this kid, this is our guy," So, enter Kevin into the State Farm fold, and we had to make a transition because, we had to explain to the world how you have this Caucasian, that's Jake from State Farm, and all of a sudden you have an African-American Jake. And so, we had to put our creative thoughts together and say, how are we going to introduce this? So we did the ad that showed them both, showed Kevin answering the phone and saying, "Why are they asking me what I wear?" And he looks around at the other cube, and that was the original Jake, who didn't look anything like he did before because he lost a bunch of weight. But so that's the way we kind of introduced it, and from there, it's been a culture phenomena.
So we can take
sure.
a couple questions from the audience. We have a little bit of time to take a couple of questions. I don't know if you want to choose.
Zach's going to see if he can.
Okay, so we'll take a couple questions
Yeah.
while we do that.
Yeah, I see him. Yeah.
You want to get the mic?
So the
Because we have people streaming as well.
While you were tenured with State Farm,
Yeah.
what was the biggest problem you ran into with the project, and how did you overcome that problem?
Great question. Remember back to me saying not patient, right? I mean, the advantages of working for a small company is you can get stuff done. Stuff wasn't the word I was going to use, but you can get stuff done in a hurry, right? Large companies, especially large initiatives, take forever. So, I mean, as we really started in 2013, modernizing not just the marketing space that I'm talking about, but the whole company, right? So moving off a legacy platform was, and by the way, most big companies fight this, but getting the organization off a legacy cloud platform into a cloud platform, really frustrating. It takes forever. What they say you can be done in 15 months is they meant 15 years. But probably that. Because if you're not on it, right? It's like, oh, we can do this. Oh, no, we can't do that on the legacy system. So you start getting really, hand-tied on what you can say yes to and what you can't.
We're actually doing that. You guys are experiencing this transition now from the platform we were on to the platform we're on now. So you get a sense of what he's talking about and all the challenges and hiccups that you face?
But easily that. I mean, if you're talking about a single thing, easily that. It's a great question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Were you ever like afraid of failing? Like you said, you were offered positions like within, you're
Yep.
supposed to be there 3 years and 4 months, and then having to move your families and just scared of the position. What if I'm not good enough?
Excuse me. We're coming back to that. Kevin. What are you doing? Hold on here. Okay, so your great institution is in a hole here, and I can't get your pretty face on the phone. But you have to know, I'm sitting in an auditorium full of your peers, and I was just asked by the person interviewing me about our relationship and your story, and I said, well, let's just get him on the phone. And if you got a second, I'm going to give you here to Eric, and Eric can ask you what he wants to ask. Is that cool?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Hi, Kevin. I'm Eric Riney. I'm chair of the management department. It's great to talk to you.
By the way, Kevin, before you go further, tell Harriet we said happy birthday. His mother's birthday is today.
Oh,
Yeah, mom's here. Yeah. Happy birthday to mom.
Yeah,
that's
happy birthday.
fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on the phone. And, really quickly, I just want to know from your perspective, what does State Farm mean to you, and what has this done for your career?
Oh, honestly, it's been truly a dream come true, and I think that's just personally to me as well, just because I've always been not just a thespian but also a sports fan, and I think this is the only gig I could have ever booked on earth that would have blended me right into both. It's changed my life, of course, in a great way, to being an actor that has a job. But I think it's also incredible to have something that I can constantly work on, constantly build the core of, the why. It's a character that's still creative enough to have an impact to the Super Bowl champions or the everyman and treat them all the same. That's the core of Jake, is just the everyman who's in the battle with everyone, and all of us are in the same battle together. So that's a nice thing to be able to explore a character like that. I've always loved certain plays that had that type of hero that wanted everything to be right. And I think right now I get to play something that's just like that. And I mean, when I meet some really established actors that I've been fans of my entire life, and the fact that they've known me or have seen me, it really is something I can't describe, having someone you're a fan of say that they're also a fan of you,
Right.
So it's done some wonders.
Yeah.
And it's taught me a lot, and I really feel that, since Rand brought me on, the brand and I have really worked together to see what the next best thing is, not just for the culture, but also for the message itself. And they've really just welcomed me on as a family, which feels very important, because I see a lot of that with the other agents as well, is that it feels like a family company, that once you're in, then everyone is making sure that we look out for you, because we all know the work that we all do throughout the year just to be our best selves and have the best product. And so that's been a learning experience for me to adapt into that and feel what the weight of this role really does for other
Right.
people as well. So yeah, a wild experience, a wild, creative, fun, very insightful, just business-wise of what to do as well.
Yeah.
Just the fact that there are teams of people that are constantly not just trying to be creative and stand out in their own right, but also seeing what other people do as well that's amazing towards entertainment or sports, or insurance-wise, and helping other people and what people are going through and how they maneuver around certain things in order to help out more than is required of them. So sorry, that's just kind of a broad stroke of everything that's changed in my life by
Right.
being this character. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I love it. It's way better than me just, getting on stage 8 nights a week and and trying this one role. The
Right.
outreach it really spreads, and that's I don't know, that to me is awesome. It's really special.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. It sounds like it's been a great roller coaster ride,
Yeah.
and congratulations to you. You have a lot of fans in the audience. Matter of fact, when Rand was
great.
trying
Oh,
to when he was trying to call you, a couple of them said, "Give me his phone number." So
Which I'll gladly pass out when I'm done.
we'll post it on the board behind us so that
Hey, Kevin, just
to everyone. Wait, who did that? Devin Booker did that once.
Oh,
for
yeah.
Adam Silver.
Hey, Kev, I got just a question. We've been doing Q&A here for a few minutes. You got students here who are sitting exactly where you were in 2011, 2012,
Yeah, I graduated 2012.
2012. What would you say to them as it relates to, as they start the chase of whatever it is they want to do? What advice would you give them knowing the path that you've been on? Which, by the way, I know the backstory. You didn't graduate, and I remember the first time I was with you. You introduced me to the people you worked with at the Gap, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
you struggled.
Abercrombie.
Abercrombie, yeah. So what advice would you give them?
Truly, so everyone in that room I know has their plan A, and it's as simple as going for it. I mean, every path that people want to take is going to be a difficult one, a stressful one, but the journey is worth it because of that being your story, of how you conquered adversity. And even when those things, really kind of weigh on you in real life, it's a little harder. The world adapts really quickly, so you have to adapt with it, be okay to be fluid and find the new way to really get through to your ultimate goal. Once you do that and have that burning desire to write that out every day, and every day encourage yourself, even if you feel like things are slow, things aren't going the way you want it to go, just telling yourself every day it's a new day, and today you're going to do everything you can do, everything that you need to do. Be the person that you see yourself as, and time and patience. And I really think that, that'll get you to your goal.
It's awesome.
I mean, it feels as simple as that, but I know the energy behind that is, it's good. There's amazing days, there's off days, there's heavy days, there's light days, but go through those days because that's what makes the story so good when you finally get there,
Amen.
beautifully said. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, I really thank you so much. This was such a pleasant surprise, and we can't wait to see you back here at Webster, maybe even on stage or something.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there. I miss Webster as well. I was just seeing a couple of alumni in New York when I was filming out there, and we were talking about everything we've been through and also what we want to do, and coming back to the school and really kind of dropping the new knowledge of what's going on out here in Hollywood and New York and just everything. So we'll definitely be there.
All right. Well, take care of yourself and enjoy your mother's birthday. I hope you're doing something special for her.
If she can listen right now, Kev, happy birthday, Harriet. And I'll look forward to talking to you soon, my man.
All right, yeah, I'll talk to you right now.
Oh, wait. 1 second.
Wind up, can we just hear the dialogues from Dan in his own words?
What dialogue?
From the commercial.
What, Jake from State Farm? Oh, Kevin, you.
What happened?
The people in the audience are requesting your tagline. They want to hear you say it.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Kevin. This wasn't my plan.
Okay, yeah. Well, are we all about to do it together? Are we gonna make this a group thing? Cause
No,
like a good neighbor.
they're shaking their heads. They want to hear you say it.
All right, cool. Here we go. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Thank you so much, Kevin. You've been fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll be in touch with you, my man. Happy birthday, Harry. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, really quickly, because
Bye-bye.
I know individuals need to get to the next class, but
Can I finish this question?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
question really quickly.
So I was asking, how did you handle like being afraid? Were you ever afraid to fail, like getting these new positions and moving your family and just constantly going up, or just getting a position and like, I thought I wanted this, I'm scared, or is this too much? Or like, how do you continue to be encouraged and motivated, but also ready to take on the next challenge without letting the fear take over?
Yeah, that's question of the day right there. I mean, and the answer is yes. And I think any human who would tell you, no, I just, kept charging and never afraid of anything. I think most people, whether they're musicians, athletes, whatever, corporate people, I think most people who achieve any level of success, if they're really being honest with you, fear of failure is probably at the very top. So what I would say there is, so accept that. All of you accept that. Once you get on a roll, you're going to be worried that you can't keep it up. With that said, I think the key to success, the key to life is taking that failure and go, you're not going to dominate me. You know what? I am going to be all I can be. And if my family thinks this move's right, we're going to take it together, right? One of the things I figured out pretty quick was that the I thing didn't work with my wife. Like, we decided that we were going to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma. We decided that we're going to move to Los Angeles, California for the second time. But I think that became really what starts as that, I don't know if I have the skills. By the way, what if I'm not good at this? What if we make this move and hate it, right? You just turn that into the rocket fuel that every one of you have in here. You got to figure out how to tap that. And once you tap it, you'll kind of realize, that's, some people call it inner strength, inner peace, whatever. But once you tap that, then that fear of failure becomes the very thing that will feed you to do whatever you want to do in life.
All right, awesome. So before we end things, I want to do one quick thing. Can we stand up
Sure.
and do a selfie
absolutely.
with them behind us?
You want them to stand
You
up?
guys-
They need to stand up.
Oh, okay, stand up for us.
I'll get down here. Let's see. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Good job,
All right.
guys.
Thank you, guys. Give Rand a hand of thanks. Really appreciate you coming and sharing with us.
If anyone ever wants to reach out to me, if you have a question, Rand Harbert, RandHarbert @gmail.com. Just remind me where we met, okay? Otherwise, I'll think you're junk mail. So, but I'm more than happy.
All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day and weekend.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yes, nice to meet you.